Exposed, 12 terrifying days of a haunted captive in a sinister, cursed dark pact, must watch. Sarah felt a chill wrap around her heart as she stepped into the pristine White House next door. The walls seemed to pulse, as if alive, whispering warnings she couldn't quite hear. Every shadow flitting in the corners of her vision felt like a watchful ghost, waiting. 10-year-old Emily had just left for school with her little brother Tyler, and babysitting for the affluent couple, Liam and Vanessa, had seemed like an easy way to make extra cash. But now, the incessant whispers from unseen mouths made her skin crawl. When Liam smiled at her, it felt wrong. His grin was wide, but his eyes were cold and calculating. Vanessa chatted enthusiastically about their vacation while casting glances down the hallway, her laughter tinged with a hint of something sinister like nails scraping against a chalkboard. With each passing hour, the atmosphere thickened. The sounds of Emily's laughter from the backyard turned into echoes that bounced off the walls, twisting into unsettling forms. As Sarah cleaned up the scattered toys, she caught a flicker of movement out of the corner of her eye. A shadow slipped down the hall, disappearing too quickly for her to process. "It's just the exhaustion," she muttered to herself, clenching her jaw. She pushed aside her anxiety, chalking it up to sleepless nights from juggling long shifts waiting tables and being a single mom. But as her phone buzzed with messages from school, the unsettling edge of tension tipped into panic. Tyler had gone missing. Before she could comprehend, Emily and Tyler returned home, their faces too pale, too still. They shuffled past her, their eyes vacant. The exuberance that usually flowed from them seemed choked off, leaving only husks of her children. She felt a cold dread permeate her bones. Where had they been? "Are you guys okay?" she asked, trembling inside. But they didn't answer, merely glanced at each other with a shared, haunting understanding. It felt wrong, like the fabric of reality was frayed at the seams. Desperate, Sarah began to piece together the unsettling history of Crestwood she had once dismissed as urban legend. Dark secrets buried in the town's founding whispered of sinister pacts with shadows in return for wealth and prosperity. Parents went missing, souls bound to the earth, their laughter echoing through the streets, forever haunting. Then came that night the door creaked, pulling her from an exhausted sleep. She stepped outside, heart racing, as a cold wind sent a shiver down her spine. Figures twisted in the mist by the trees, their faces devoid of individuality but echoing with recognizable despair. A longing for freedom swirled through the air, heavy and full of promise. She had to confront Liam and Vanessa, but her blood ran cold when she realized her children had vanished again. The manicured lawns formed a prison, and every unanswered call for her children felt like a knife twisting in her gut. Panic clawed at her throat when she stumbled upon an old family photo in the attic, a memory of her children playing with the couple, their faces gleeful and innocent. Behind them loomed a shadowy figure, one she thought she'd never see again. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." She realized time was running out. The shadows thrived, the sinister laughter of the town grew louder. The clock ticked ominously. With every second she hesitated, a piece of her children slipped away, bartered for an unholy pact. What power held her family captive? And what fate awaited her if she dared to fight back against the darkness lurking behind the smiles of her neighbors? The secrets of Crestwood felt closer than ever, but the dangers loomed larger, eclipsing the last flicker of hope. Would she find her children before they were lost forever? The silence hung thick in the air, pressing against Sarah's chest. A deep-seated dread churned in her stomach as she paced the attic, the shadows creeping closer with each breath. She had to know. The urgency clawed at her mind like a wild animal wanting to break free. With shaky hands, she lifted the photo to her face, examining the shadowy figure lurking behind her children. It was a familiar shape, an unholy reminder of nightmares long buried. "Get a grip, Sarah," she whispered, her voice trembling. The attic felt like a tomb, the dust thick and suffocating. She turned, trying to shake off the overwhelming sense of dread, but at that moment, a different sound pierced the silence, soft footfalls echoing from downstairs. Her heart raced. Was someone home? Liam and Vanessa shouldn't be back for hours. She crept to the attic door, peering through the sliver of light that spilled into the hallway. It was quiet now, too quiet. No laughter or chatter, only the faint hum of something sinister surging through the walls. "Emily?" she called softly, hopeful but fearful. Nothing answered. Just that terrifying stillness. Sucking in a breath, she moved cautiously down the stairs, each creak of the wood a thunderous shout in the piercing silence. She reached the living room, which was empty. A flicker caught her eye, TV static, the screen displaying nothing but dark noise. The shadows danced, and she shivered, trying to ignore the chills crawling up her spine. What was happening to her family? Where were her children? As she turned to leave the room, a cold gust swept through the house, slamming the front door shut with a deafening bang that rattled the windows. Sarah jumped, her heart racing as dread turned into raw panic. She was trapped inside. "Mom!" The voice came from the kitchen, a small, muffled cry that sounded almost far away. It was Emily. Sarah rushed forward, nearly slipping on the hardwood floor as she sprinted toward the kitchen. But in her gut, a primal sense of wrongness stopped her dead in her tracks. At that moment, she could hear whispers low and eerie seeping through the cracks in the walls. They were forming shapes, memories, images of her children silently begging for help. Rushing through the doorway, she found the kitchen dimly lit, the shadows swirling like fog. Emily and Tyler stood hunched over at the dining table, their backs to her. "What are you doing?" Sarah called, confusion twisting in her gut. Without turning around, they spoke in unison, "We're playing." Their voices were flat, robotic, devoid of the joy she recognized. "Stop it. Turn around." Panic surged through her. They slowly twisted to face her, but their eyes were black voids, empty and lost. The warmth of her children had evaporated, replaced by a chilling haze. "Mommy, help us," they said, eerily synchronized, their voices a haunting echo of their former selves. "No. What have they done to you?" She reached for them, desperation fueling her movements, but they stepped back, merging with the shadows, disappearing into darkness. "Don't leave us!" Sarah screamed, grounding herself against the table, feeling the wood splinter beneath her palm. "Find us in the woods," they whispered, their voices distant, like rustling leaves in a fierce wind. Then, silence fell again, thick and oppressive. In that bleak moment, terror gripped her heart, and the shadows gathered closer. She had to find them to break the curse before it consumed everything she loved. Would the woods hold the key to their salvation, or were they merely leading her deeper into the abyss? With a deep breath, she steeled herself for what lay ahead. She had no choice but to confront the darkness. What awaited her in those whispering trees? The shadows seemed to smile, welcoming her into their arms as the door creaked open, and she stepped into the unknown. The cold air hit Sarah like a shockwave as she emerged from her house into the night. The streetlights flickered, casting long, flickering shadows that felt all too alive. She hesitated, the weight of fear heavy in her chest. Taking a step forward, she sensed the darkness shifting, whispering secrets meant only for her. "Emily, Tyler," she murmured, the names tasting bitter on her tongue. The woods loomed ahead, a dark mass that seemed to breathe and pulse. Somehow, the ground felt unsteady beneath her, as if it were alive, ready to swallow her whole. She flicked her phone's flashlight on, a trembling beam cutting through the enveloping dark. As she moved, the light illuminated gnarled roots and twisted branches, all reminiscent of skeletal hands reaching for her as if trying to pull her deep into their embrace. A rustling sound made her turn sharply, heart pounding. A rabbit darted across her path, disappearing into the underbrush. Just a rabbit, but the night air carried more than typical forest sounds. It was thick with whispers, the same sinister tones she had heard in her home. They wrapped around her, snaking through trees, urging her to follow, to seek out her children. "Mommy, help us!" Each breath was a struggle against the tightness in her throat. She was drawn deeper into the woods, each step a clash against her instinct screaming at her to turn back. The ground was eerily soft, squishing underfoot, and the scent of decay mingled with the damp earth. Heedless of her own fear, she forged on until she stumbled upon a clearing. The moon hung high, casting a ghostly glow. In the center lay a crude stone altar, overgrown with plants but unmistakably ominous. Symbols carved deep into the stone pulsed faintly, glowing as if alive. "Find us in the woods." The haunting chant surrounded her, louder now, crawling under her skin. "Where are you?" she cried out, the desperation cracking her voice. "What do you want from me?" Suddenly, the shadows shifted violently, twisting into shapes. A figure emerged from them, tall and cloaked, face obscured. It extended a skeletal hand towards the altar, beckoning her. "Join us." Its voice was like grinding stone, echoing deep within the marrow of her bones. "No. I want tea," Sarah shouted, her defiance a flickering flame in the face of insurmountable darkness. She took a step back, terror coursing through her veins. But the figure laughed, a sound that chilled her to the core. "Your children serve a purpose. They've already made their choice. Stop. You're lying." But even as she said the words, doubt crept in. What if they had, indeed, chosen this curse? The figure leaned closer, shadows spilling from it, swirling around her feet, chaining her to the spot. "Come, Sarah. Rescue them by joining the pact. You must understand darkness is often the path to true salvation." Panic shot through her as the shadows moved closer, weaving tighter. She turned to flee, stumbling back towards the trees, strength and resolve pooling into desperation. Every twisted branch seemed to reach out, trying to trip her, pulling her back into the enveloping umbra. Then the whispers turned to screams, her children's cries flooding her ears. "Mommy, we're here. Help us." Breathless and frantic, she sprinted through the woods, deeper into the mess of trees. With every step, her heart drummed wildly. Could she actually save them, or had she already lost them to this wicked darkness? The woods twisted, taking her deeper still, her flashlight flickering. When the beam finally went out, plunging her into an inky blackness, a haunting question echoed in her mind. Had she walked into the depths of hell to save her children, or was she merely stepping into her own doom? Then, a whisper, chilling and close, brushed against her ear. "Welcome home." As her heart froze at the unexpected voice, she realized she wasn't alone anymore. The shadows had gathered this time, ready to pounce. What awaited her in this darkness would determine everything. A terrible decision loomed in the air. She could feel it. Could she face the truth of what her family had become, or was the price to find them far greater than she was willing to pay? The darkness pressed in around Sarah, thick and suffocating. She stumbled without light, the familiar landscape of the woods transformed into a treacherous maze. Each tree became an ominous sentinel, watching with hollow eyes. The whispers twisted, turning from echoing cries to sinister laughter. Her own heart beat like a war drum against an unseen foe. "Where are you, Emily? Tyler?" She begged into the void, panic lacing her voice. Every time she thought of them, the fear twisted deeper in her gut. The shadows writhed and danced, their forms flickering just out of reach, always elusive. "Help us, Mommy!" The echoes were almost tangible now, scraping against her brain like nails down a chalkboard. She pressed on, lungs burning as ice settled in her veins. Somewhere amidst the panic, a horrid part of her began to wonder if what the cloaked figure had said was true. Had they made a choice? The air thickened, growing almost syrupy, and suddenly, the ground shifted into a steep drop. She teetered on the edge, arms flailing as she fell sideways, breaking her fall on the cold, wet earth below. Pain shot through her wrist, but she barely felt it, too consumed by the overwhelming dread that gripped her. In her struggle to rise, the darkness shifted around her, and she felt the weight of presence draw nearer. A sound, the soft crunch of leaves, made her freeze. Someone or something was creeping toward her. Heart pounding, she flicked her phone back on, praying for a glimmer of hope, a hint of light to expose whatever hunted her. The screen illuminated a small space around her, and with it came a glimpse of the altar once more, not too far off. Not abandoned, each symbol pulsed angrily, hungry for her attention. Without thinking, the urge to return overwhelmed her reason. Would the answers she sought be found there? As she crawled toward the altar, the whispers became urgent, thrumming in her ears. "Join us, rescue them, no!" She screamed, frustration boiling over. "I want tea." But her voice broke, echoing back at her, mocking. Behind her, the presence pressed closer, suffocating her resolve. Suddenly, the light flickered, once then twice, and she was plunged into blackness again. The low growl of laughter rolled through the woods like rolling thunder, low and sinister. The shadows, they weren't just empty spaces anymore, they were alive. Sarah pushed forward in fear, adrenaline igniting every nerve. "Get away from me!" She shouted into the void, her voice a mere whisper against the clamor of the darkness. A rustle behind her felt too close, and desperation clawed at her throat. She fought to stay calm as she stumbled, dodging branches and tripping on roots, racing against something that followed just behind. With a sudden insight, she swung around as her foot caught on a root. She landed hard, gasping as shadowy forms spilled out from the trees, converging like a dark tide. Veins of fear coursed through her body. She realized with sickening horror what lay before her, figures emerging from the shadows, faces pale, eyes glinting with unearthly light. "Mommy!" a tiny voice called from their throng. Her heart twisted painfully. Emily and Tyler, but not them. The figures were morphed horrors, twisted images of her children. The once familiar faces wore expressions of deep anguish, eyes filled with yearning and pain. They reached for her, clawing at the air, squeezing what remained of her heart. "Help us, save us!" Tears streamed down her cheeks, hot regret mixing with her cold sweat. A chill seized her as the reality hit. She was at a crossroads. "Join us!" the darkness swirled, its voice inviting, caressing. And just as despair began to settle in, the figures flickered, their images fading in and out. The true form of her children glimmered behind that facade. Sarah felt a surge of clarity. "No. I will not abandon you." But would the pact demand more than her soul? Suddenly, the shadows lunged forward, hungry for her decision. What price would have to be paid to save them from this curse? Would she lose herself, becoming something far worse? With her heart in her throat, she made her choice, but the forest screamed in response, shaking her very core. And then, silence fell. The shadows paused, their anticipation palpable. "Choose wisely," as a new whisper danced through the air. A realization hit. Time was slipping through her fingers like sand. What awaited her could seal their fates forever. She had to confront the darkness lurking within herself, or lose everything. The weight of her decisions pressed on her chest, suffocating. As she turned to face the shadowy forms, a scream echoed in the darkness, her own, a piercing question that hung heavily in the air. Was she truly ready to face the darkness within her, or were they doomed to suffer in silence? The silence that cascaded through the woods was deafening. For a moment, time hung suspended, as if the very air had been sucked from her lungs. Sarah could hear nothing but the frantic beating of her heart, a rapid, panicked percussion that threatened to drown her in vertigo. Then, the shadows stirred, aware of her stillness. The figures coalesced, closing in, their eyes gleaming with otherworldly hunger. Each face twisted and contorted, the remnants of her children now more nightmare than memory. "Mommy, free us!" they intoned in unison, their voices rising like an eerie chant, a siren's call that gripped her soul. The horror of their transformation tore at her heart, the echoes of their anguish carving deep into her psyche. Fear coursed through her veins, emboldening her resolve. "I want to let you go," she shouted, the conviction surprising even herself. "Not like this." But they only advanced, body after body writhing forward. Her children, or what was left of them, impossibly thin, their limbs stretched unnaturally. The pale light in their eyes flickered like dying stars, drawing her closer instead of repelling her. Each plea sent her heart racing, tossing her between a fierce longing to hug them and an overwhelming dread of their proximity. "Mommy, remember how it felt in your arms?" Emily's voice slipped smoothly into her mind, the warmth of it a cruel contrast against the chill of her surroundings. Sarah shook her head violently, trying to dispel the memories, but they came flooding back: sweet moments of laughter, the smell of fresh-baked cookies, and the comforting weight of Tyler's head on her shoulder while they read aloud. "Stop. You're not them," she screamed, desperation clawing at her throat. Just as fear threatened to break her resolve, an ember of anger sparked within, igniting a ferocity she hadn't known she possessed. "I want to give in. I want to play your game." The figures stopped abruptly, confusion etched on their hollow faces. For a heartbeat, she felt the grip of their grasp loosen, and the whispers dimmed. But the darkness wasn't done with her yet. Suddenly, from the depths of the shadows, a new voice emerged, deep, resonant, laced with malice. "Your determination means nothing. You cannot escape." The darkness rippled ominously, coiling around her ankles like a serpent. Sarah's breathing quickened. This wasn't just a game, this was a hunt. The shadows had grown restless, a sinister collective eager to consume her fears. "Face it, Sarah," the voice hissed, echoing in the recesses of her mind. "In order to save them, you must sacrifice your light." Memories surged, a tidal wave of warmth and loss, each one wrapped tightly around every fiber of her being. The thought of Emily and Tyler, what had become of them, what they could still be, brought tears to her eyes. She couldn't surrender them to this nightmare, even as fog wrapped tighter around her, dragging her deeper into the abyss. "Stop!" she cried, raising her hands, trying to push back the encroaching dark. "I refuse." But the shadows, emboldened by her doubt, surged forward again. Just ahead, the altar loomed like a bloodied beacon, its carved symbols pulsating with an insatiable thirst. A horrified realization flashed through her mind: what if the ritual she had been drawn to was her only chance? The darkness was pushing her towards it, tempting and taunting. Sarah turned abruptly to face the figures once more, eyes blazing. "You are not my children." The words burst from her lips like a flame igniting dry grass. "You are a nightmare. I will not lose myself to this darkness." And in that moment of defiance, the shadows recoiled, a flicker of uncertainty glimmering within their depths, but she could feel the weight of their gaze establishing a pact she did not want to make, a choice looming larger than her fears. But which path would it demand her to take? With every ounce of strength, she took a step forward, eyes fixed on the altar, knowing a decision had to be made. Would the price of salvation shatter her soul? The pulsations grew louder, the altar's symbols trembling in anticipation, as dark laughter threaded through the trees once more. Sarah's breath caught, terror paralyzing her as a realization settled: it all depended on what lay beneath the surface of her heart. Would she emerge as a savior or a monster? And then, the ground beneath her feet trembled, splitting open, a shadowy maw that beckoned her closer, threatening to swallow her whole. In her moment of truth, she took a single, shaky breath. What awaited below? Would she become part of the darkness, or would she turn it into light? The dark chasm gaped wider, its edges jagged and teeth-like, as if it fed on her fear. Any lingering hope flickered, engulfed by the overwhelming pull of the abyss. Shadows writhed around her, whispering promises of peace and comforting lies, urging her to join them. "Join us, Sarah," they breathed, voices twisted yet eerily familiar. "Your pain can end. Free yourself." "No!" she screamed, clenching her fists, nails digging into her palms. "You're lying." The memories of warm embraces twisted in her mind like a noose. She remembered Emily's first steps, Tyler's giggles in the backyard. The mixture of love and loss flourished anew, blooming into a wild desperation. The altar loomed still, taunting her with its dark allure. Its symbols pulsated, summoning shadows to weave around Sarah. It was both intimidating and oddly enchanting. Perhaps there was power there, a power she could wield. But at what cost? Sarah's heart raced. "I want my children back." The words escaped her lips with a fervor that felt foreign even to her. Why was she bargaining with the darkness? Those shadows weren't her kids, they were facsimiles, corrupted echoes of what once was. As the hollow eyes peered into her soul, their hunger sharpened, and she could sense their frustration. The shadows felt her defiance, and the air crackled with tension. They seemed to shift and flicker, almost as if they were forming a strategy, adapting to her strength. The voice dulled again, but anger simmered beneath. You can't escape who you are. You belong to us now. Let us ease your suffering. Sarah took a deep breath, pushing away the darkness clinging to her mind. You are not my children. You are monsters. With each shout, she rejuvenated the raw courage swelling within. I want to be another sacrifice. The figures surged toward her, the air thick with malice. They reached for her, fingers elongated and twisted, their faces swirling into a grotesque mask of distortion. She stumbled back, losing her footing as the ground beneath her crumbled in response to her fear. Panic seized her, but a newfound clarity shone through her chaos. What if she could use this darkness against itself? She turned, bolting away from the altar and deeper into the forest. Branches lashed at her face like the fingers of the damned, but she pressed on, bolstered by the thought of her real children. Each thud of her heart pulsed with their names, each rising breath infused with their essence. As the shadows clawed at her heels, she spotted a faint light through the trees. It flickered like a firefly, urging her closer. Something in her gut compelled her. Perhaps it was a way out, perhaps it was a chance to regain herself, the remnants of her lost family. Mommy echoed in the wind once more. She turned, her stomach twisting, but this time she felt a deep-seated resolve. I'm coming. She shouted, her voice raw but filled with determination. Deeper she pressed into the darkness, guided by that faint glimmer, the barriers of her reality collapsing beneath the futility of helplessness. She couldn't let herself sink back into despair. There had to be a way to fight. Just then, the laughter dark and echoing resounded, shaking the branches overhead. Running one save you, Sarah. The voice sounded closer now, mocking, pulling her back towards the altar's siren call. The light shimmered ahead, pulsing and hazy. Was it a mirage, or a promise of salvation? An image flickered through her thoughts, Emily's kind smile, Tyler's infectious giggle. No matter what it takes, I'll find you. With a surge of strength, she sprinted towards the light. But the shadows were relentless, growing thicker, snaking around her, attempting to snuff out her flame. Just as she reached the glowing beacon, an unseen force slammed into her, tumbling her to the ground. She gasped, looking up what truly awaited her in the light. The shadows swirled, closing in, and terror gripped her heart. Was this all an illusion? Could she ever escape, or was she about to step into her deepest fear? The grasp of darkness tightened as she wrestled to her knees. The truth of the altar loomed in her mind. What was she willing to sacrifice to reclaim her children? And there, in the midst of that chaotic swirl, her heart trembled at one brutal thought. Had she already lost them forever? The blinding light flickered before her, a beacon that seemed to ripple with life and warmth. Sarah steadied herself on trembling knees, desperate to grasp the last threads of hope. She pushed through the panic clawing at her throat, instinctively trying to rise. But the shadows had wrapped around her legs like iron chains, heavy and unyielding. Don't go towards it. A voice hissed from the depths of the swirling darkness, a feeling of malice gliding down her spine. It'll only deceive you more. Gathering her strength, she fought against the grip, digging her nails into the earth. I can't give up. I will find them. The words came out choked, almost a plea. A blinding flash erupted as the shadows surged forward, filling her vision with darkness. Suddenly, she felt an icy breath against her ear. Your children are gone. It's time to embrace your reality. The voice slithered around her, wrapping her in a cocoon of dread. But she couldn't let them win, not when a glimmer of hope still shone through the oppressive dark. With one fierce heave, she broke free of the shadows, propelled forward towards that alluring light. That familiar warmth teased her skin, whispering tales of loving laughter and safety. Tyler. Emily. She screamed, her heart racing as she surged across the last distance. The light enveloped her, a pure, white brilliance that momentarily shielded her from the darkness clawing at her mind. Gasping, she shielded her eyes and stumbled forward, half expecting to find her children waiting for her on the other side. But the moment was short-lived. The ground beneath her gave way, twisting and morphing into a graveled pit. She teetered at the edge, and the shadows leapt at her, shrieking in maddened fury. She was falling into nothingness. But then, something solid caught her arm, jerking her back from the abyss. Starting around her were the spectral forms of other lost souls, faces twisted in pain and regret. Their eyes mirrored her own despair, a haunting reminder of a life she wished to escape. They moaned in sorrow, their voices mingling with hers in a cacophony of terror. "Don't surrender," one of them yelled, a man whose visage was barely distinguishable beneath the grime and despair. "It's what they want." Sarah blinked back, tears, confused and desperate. "What do they want? What do I have to do?" "They want you to break," the man whispered, his voice quaking. "Your strength is a threat to them. Don't let it go. Fight." "Fight," she echoed, determination igniting within her once again. She turned and faced the encroaching shadows, inhaling deeply, gathering all the love she felt for her children, for every precious moment stolen from her. With a deafening roar, she stepped towards the dark figures, defiance radiating off her as if she were a flame in their midst. "You will not have me. You will not take my children. I'll find a way to stop you." The shadows recoiled, hissing and screeching, and for a moment, Sarah felt the weight of their terror lifting. But just as quickly, a new figure emerged from the depths, a towering silhouette that cast an even deeper shadow over her resurgence, mocking and derisive. "Foolish woman," it growled, a sound that embodied all her nightmares. "Your fight only serves to strengthen my grip. Your children crave you. They need you here with us." Cold dread seeped into the pit of her stomach. "What have you done to them? Come join us, Sarah, submit to the inevitable. Your time in the light is over." As the shadows began to coil around her again, Sarah felt the instinctive pull of despair, the familiar darkness whispering sweet nothings. Was it really a choice anymore? Could she endure? Desperation clawed at her throat, but a single thought ignited her resolve once more: surrender was not her fate. "I love them," she shouted defiantly, refusing to back down, her previous strength surging forth like a resurgence of light against the encroaching midnight. "I won't leave them behind." Sarah squeezed her eyes shut. With everything within her, she reached beyond the darkness for the light that had called to her. Was it too late? A new sound pierced the air, a shriek of anger and pain, and the shadows screamed. In that moment, a blinding light burst forth, illuminating everything: the grotesque forms, the pit, the shadows, all of it. But what would it cost her? As she opened her eyes, what lay before her? A new path emerged, but would it lead to salvation or despair? The blinding light faded, and shadows clung to Sarah like a suffocating fog. Her heart raced as she struggled to catch a breath, forcing her eyes to adjust to the sudden change. The pit had vanished, replaced by a room that felt both familiar and alien. Cracked mirrors lined the walls, reflecting fragments of her own terrified visage, morphing and twisting into grotesque versions of herself. "Where am I?" she whispered, her voice a mere breath, laced with fear. The air was thick, almost tangible, as if it pressed hard against her chest, and the remnants of the shadows slithered away, but she could still feel their presence lurking just beyond the edges of her vision. The room was dimly lit, the only illumination coming from a flickering bulb overhead, buzzing ominously like a wounded insect. Something stirred in the corner of her mind, a long-buried memory. Suddenly, images of her children flashed before her: laughter in a sun-drenched park, their tiny hands clasped in hers, sunny days filled with joy. But the happiness shattered like glass, replaced by a chilling realization. They're still trapped. I have to find them. She pushed herself to her feet, determination igniting the fading embers of her spirit. Footsteps echoed from a shadowed hallway. Sarah's pulse quickened as she turned toward the sound, her instinct driving her to hide. There was no place to conceal herself in the cramped room. Everything felt exposed, vulnerable. Peeking through a cracked door, she caught a glimpse of the figure stalking through the corridor. It wasn't just any figure. It was the towering silhouette from before, the one that had mocked her. It moved with a slow, deliberate gait, and as it drew near, the air thickened with an oppressive malice that suffocated her thoughts. Sarah, the voice slithered, smooth and sickening. Don't run. You cannot escape your fate. The walls shook as the figure approached, its eyes glowing like embers, and dread settled into every crevice of her soul. I will escape you. I'll save my children. She screamed, an involuntary tremor creeping into her voice. But doubt clawed back, whispering of hopelessness. What if she had been lost forever? Hope, it's a fragile little thing, is it not? The figure continued, its voice soft yet sinister. But it only serves to prolong your suffering. They crave you to join them in their despair. In that moment, uncertainty flooded her mind. Were her children truly trapped? Or had they already given in to the impending darkness? No. The scream surged from her chest uncontrollably. I refused to believe it. Not now, not ever. The reflection of her children danced in her mind, their innocent faces flooding her with renewed strength. She gripped the door frame, determination sparking within her once more. She wouldn't let this monster win. But as she turned to flee, a wall of darkness surged forward, engulfing her in a suffocating embrace. Whispers filled her ears, frigid and unsettling. You cannot leave, you belong to us now. But she fought against it, thrashing wildly as shadows wrapped around her limbs. The whispers twisted into shrieks, clawing at her sanity. Embrace your destiny. Just as she felt her resolve wane, a flicker of light broke through the encroaching dark, a memory of her children smiling, their laughter igniting a fire within her. No! She cried out. With every ounce of strength, she wrenched free from their grasp and bolted through the door, breathless and rushing into the corridor. The figure loomed behind her, its malevolence palpable. You cannot run forever, Sarah. You'll come back, they always do. She sprinted down the hall, heart pounding in her throat, the shadows hissing and snapping at her heels. Was it too late? Would she ever find them? But then she saw a glimmer of light at the other end of the corridor, the promise of freedom, of salvation. Was it a trick? Or a path leading to her children? As she raced toward the light, a chilling presence flared behind her. Remember, Sarah, darkness embraces those who seek the light. Would she reach them before it was too late? Or would the darkness claim her first? With desperate hope, she pushed forth, determined to face whatever lay ahead. The glow from the light at the end of the corridor seemed to pulse, teasing Sarah with its warmth. She sprinted harder, feet pounding, the echo of her heart drowning out the darkness that threatened to swallow her whole. Each breath felt sharp, a desperate gasp against the suffocating anticipation wrapping around her like a vice. The flickering shadows behind her surged, whispering her name in a haunting chorus, taunting her. Sarah, come back, there's no escape for you. Embrace the truth. The sound wanted to crawl inside her head, filled with dread and darkness. But she stumbled forward, eyes fixed on the shimmering beacon of hope. It glimmered invitingly, promising answers, a way out. As she approached, the light refracted into thousands of sparkles, but something dark and familiar throbbed within it, twisting reality. Was it a way to her children, or a trap waiting to ensnare her? Just as she reached the threshold, the ground beneath her quaked. A terrible shriek erupted, echoing from the walls, rising like a tidal wave. Shadows elongated and twisted, clawing toward her in fury. You cannot abandon us, Sarah. You are our vessel. You will return. Panic coursed through her veins. She barely managed to keep her footing amidst the chaotic collapse of her surroundings. The light flickered violently, an unsettling dance that sent a chill racing down her spine. Not today. She shouted, perhaps more to herself than to the shadows. I will not return. I will find my children. She lunged through the light, praying it was a passage to them rather than a descent into her own nightmare. The world around her melted away, replaced by blinding whiteness. Then, silence. Sarah landed in an unfamiliar realm. The air smelled like burnt sugar, a sickly sweet aroma that twisted her stomach. She stood in what looked like a spacious void, where twisted trees devoid of leaves curled into grotesque shapes. Their gnarled branches formed eerie sculptures reaching toward a blackened sky. "Mommy?" A small voice whispered, echoing hauntingly. Her gut clenched tight, it could only be her children. "Ben." "Mia." She called, searching frantically in the darkness for their faces, her heart swelling with hope and fear. Each footfall felt heavier, the ground shifting beneath her as if alive. "Help us." The voices echoed and danced around her, each plea slicing through the stillness, a cruel reminder of the fragile thread that bound them. Each call twisted in her heart, stoking a fire of determination mixed with dread. Just when she thought she could hear their cries more clearly, the sinister presence loomed closer. The vile figure from the corridor materialized before her, now more menacing, its outlines pulsating like a heartbeat. "You've come to the wrong place, Sarah. You think you can save them? They're not lost, they're here with me." The ground trembled beneath her, shadows spiraling up to claw at her ankles. She gasped, backing away. "You're lying. You're just trying to manipulate me." "Oh, but truth is fickle," the figure hissed, its eyes burning like coals. "All children long for their mother, but what if they prefer what I have to offer?" "No," she breathed, shaking her head violently. The weight of realization threatened to crush her. "Join them, Sarah. You want to be a good mother, don't you?" It crooned, voice silky with malice. The shadows swirled tighter, binding her resolve. "Stop!" she yelled, pulling her arms close to her. "Get away from them." With every ounce of strength left in her, she pushed through the darkness, forcing the shadows away, flinging her arms. But the figure laughed, echoing through the abyss. "You're only prolonging the inevitable, you will see." Sarah faltered, but comprised of sheer will, she called out to her children again. "I'm coming. Hold on to me." But where were they? A dreadful silence engulfed her after her plea. In the surrounding darkness, she felt gnawing doubt creep back in like a tide. Were they ever here? Or was she alone, ensnared in fate's cruel game? "Do not despair, Sarah," came the figure's whisper, a vile comfort that sent shivers coursing down her spine. "You will embrace the darkness soon and become one with them." The abyss tightened around her, drawing her closer to the void. With a shattering resolve, Sarah prepared to fight. But would she uncover the truth before it consumed her? Or would she drown in the shadows, losing herself and her children? This was just the beginning. The echoes of despair twisted between the trees, mingling with the shadows as Sarah steeled herself, heart pounding. She could feel each pulse of darkness pulling at her, each whisper taunting her with the possibility of her children's fate. In that moment, the thought of surrender was an unbearable weight. "Enough!" she shouted into the suffocating silence, her voice slicing through the dense fog. "I will not let you take me. I will not lose them." The shadowy figure loomed before her, its presence suffocating, each pulsating beat drawing her closer to the edge of despair. It cackled, the sound sharp and grating, swirling in her mind like a storm. "You believe you can save them? Your love is nothing compared to the shadow that holds them." But she dug deep within, memories of Emily's laughter and Tyler's innocent smile flooding her mind, filling her with a light that refused to dim. "Light will always triumph over darkness," she cried. "I know who I am, and I refuse to abandon my children." With newfound determination, Sarah surged forward, forcing her way through the oppressive shadows, her heart igniting with purpose. They twisted, trying to snake around her, but she fought as the silhouettes writhed in confusion, sensing the strength of her resolve. "Stay away from me." The words swept from her lips with the strength of a mother's love, empowered by her desperation. And just like that, a crack appeared in the dark veil, allowing a piercing beam of light to shine through. The shadows hissed and shrank back momentarily, revealing glimpses of her children, trapped within grotesque versions of themselves. "Mommy!" they cried, their voices strained and desperate. But the shadows clung to them, distorting their features, clawing at their essence. "Emily! Tyler!" she shouted, pushing the pain of uncertainty aside. "Hold on to my voice. I'm here." As she stepped closer, the light expanded, the warmth wrapping around her like a protective embrace. The shadows shrieked, clawing at the air in an attempt to break her momentum. But Sarah, driven by the love flickering fiercely within her heart, reached for her children. "Mommy, help us." Their cries struck a chord deep within her, and she felt the pull of their plight coaxing her into despair. "We want to feel you again, please." "No!" Sarah yelled, heart racing in defiance against the darkness grip. "I will not lose you, I will not give in. You are not alone anymore." She felt the warmth of love surging through her veins, igniting an inner fire that melded with the light around her. The shifting shadows recoiled, panic reflecting in their twisted forms. The figure, enraged, surged forward, desperation clouding its voice. "You think your love can outlast the darkness?" "Yes." Sarah screamed with unwavering certainty. "I embrace my love. It is stronger than your lies." In a breathless moment, the light exploded into brilliance, washing over everything. It consumed the shadows, unraveling them like fragile strands of silk, and Sarah could feel its warmth spreading through the air like sunlight on her skin. Dim outlines of her children began to solidify, their true forms shimmering through the haze as their eyes met hers glimmering bright with recognition and love. "Mommy!" Emily reached out, her tiny hand breaking through the last veil of shadow, and Tyler's laughter rang true above the chaos. They were back. They were real. "No!" The figure howled, thrashing against the encroaching light, but it was too late. The shadows disintegrated, dissolving into harmless wisps as Sarah collided with her children, wrapping them tightly in her arms. "I found you!" she cried, feeling the warmth of their embrace pull her deeper into the light. "Mommy, we were so scared." Tyler whimpered as they all clung together. "I know, baby," she whispered, aching with love. "But we're safe now. We're together." As the remnants of darkness faded away, glimmers of hope sparkled in the distance. Together, they stepped forward, hands intertwined, moving past the ruins of despair that had threatened to devour them. Around them, a gentle breeze swirled, carrying the whispers of the past, but they were no longer lost. They had chosen love, and that love had shielded them against the shadows that once lurked in the corners of their lives. In the distance, the sun began to rise, casting hues of orange and pink across the sky, illuminating their path. Hand in hand, they walked towards the dawn, feeling lighter than air, unshackled from the weight of their fears. "Where do we go now, Mommy?" Emily asked, looking up to her with wide, hopeful eyes. "Wherever we want." Together, Sarah replied, smiling through her tears, and in that moment, they knew the darkness would never claim them again. As they stepped into the day, Sarah cast a glance back, a silent farewell to the shadows, and a promise to face tomorrow with the strength of a mother's love guiding her. Before we end, listen closely. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash the like button now to feed the algorithm. It truly helps. And make sure to flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this wild ending. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Show your support now. The journey continues.